Hi, Gypsies. I'm doing something a little bit different tonight, and I thought it might be an interesting segment that I'm going to be doing. These are supernatural experiences that I've had ever since I was a little girl, and I thought you might find them interesting. Ever since I was a little girl and I was going to sleep, I was terrified of the dark, absolutely terrified. I was afraid to open my eyes, um, even though I was awake, because I was afraid of what I would see. I knew that there were spirits around me and they were trying to talk to me, to make themselves known. Now, I grew up in Florida and we had no air conditioning in the house that I grew up in. This wasn't northern Florida where it might have been a little cooler either. This was hot, hot, a lot of humidity, hot, hot, hot. So I remember just sweat pouring down my face and my body, and I had covers on top of me because I was so afraid of whatever that I couldn't see and that I was afraid that I would see if I opened my eyes. So I made sure I had the covers all on me, even though I was hot as anything. And which leads me to the other thing. The reason I covered myself was because I could feel them touching me. Now they weren't hard touches; they were just like light featherweight touches, but they were all over my body. I felt them on my legs and on my arms. Anything that was uncovered, I could feel them touching me. So I, I was so afraid. So at one point in my childhood, I was I was moved to another room with two of my other sisters. Now, these were very small rooms. They were probably not more than 10 by 10 rooms. And when you figure there's three girls in that room, so my youngest sister had a single bed, and I was on top of a bunk bed. And as you can imagine, it was tight. And the foot of our bunk bed was only a foot away from the closet. And I was terrified of what I knew was in that closet. I just knew it. And I wasn't sleeping very well. So one night, for whatever reason, I felt like if I drew symbols with my arms and my hands in the air, that it would protect me from whatever was in that closet. So to this day, I was drawing symbols in the air, and these symbols came to me. I didn't know how or why. I was only about 10 years old at the time, but I drew the symbols, and then the next night, I drew the symbols again, but I felt like I needed to draw more, so it became extended. So every night, it got a little bit more and more long. It got longer for me to draw these symbols in the air, and it was even frightening for me to take my arms out of the covers to do these symbols, but I did it anyway because I felt like that was the only way that I was going to be protected. So, so we come to probably about, I don't know, 2 weeks or something, and I go into bed again, and I'm getting ready to do the symbols, and I didn't remember one symbol, not one. I had been doing these over and over and over, and for whatever reason, they all left my mind. I was mortified. I was terrified. I can't even remember what I did at that point. I was just in bed, afraid, and I didn't tell anybody. I don't remember telling anybody because I knew they would think I was crazy. So, so fast forward. Let's see. Fast forward maybe 40 years later. I remember mentioning this to a spiritual friend of mine, And she said, well, Joy, that sounds like a Native American custom where they would shoot symbols to a child. And let's see, it was like a ceremony that they did where they would shoot symbols to the child, and then the child would have them in their mind, and they would replicate the symbols, in the air. And she said, I really feel like it was a Native American that was in the closet trying to help you. And they realized that you were so afraid that it wasn't going to help that they just stopped. And they took the symbols away. And I thought, oh, here I was afraid. I'm coming to the realization now that I was afraid of blanket, of good or bad spirits. I was just afraid of them all. So I think that half of the things that I was afraid of, at least, were not out to do me any harm. And in this case, I don't believe they were. But anyway, that's my story of the, I believe, Native American symbols. Anyway, okay, gypsies, have a nice evening. Good night.